Hello, it's Amanda from Suddenly Autistic, and I'm sitting here doing a jigsaw puzzle, or going to try and carry on doing it as much as I can while I make this video. And this video is really a reflection on my self-perception, on how I am experiencing my life. So I'm reflecting on how I experience my life now as a late diagnosed woman with autism who's been on this journey for a few years now, for three or so years. So I make videos every now and then, usually when I feel like there's something that's happening, some big aha moment, a bit of a revelation for me or whatever. But I shouldn't say but, I haven't had big revelations for the last few months. Well, really, the last months, I don't know why I said that. I don't know, for the last time. So I haven't been having as many big revelations. Then I had a revelation the other day, probably yesterday or the day before maybe, that maybe what's happening to me now is that I am experiencing what it's like to be me, to simply be me. And I think that's worth digging into. The reason I think that's worth digging into is because being somebody who's late diagnosed in their late 40s, that's a lot of life that's happened without that self-knowledge. And I've spoke about this pretty much every video, so I won't keep going on about it. But then, so there's this huge history where you don't really know who you are and you feel a bit weird and things aren't quite right. And there's just like this invisible, I don't know, there's this programming that everyone else has got that you haven't got. So you definitely feel the difference. Then you get diagnosed and it's this big aha moment, and it's about learning about yourself. But then what next? What I think is happening to me that's coming next is this feeling comfortable, not comfortable, it's not comfortable, but existing completely. So being complete. I don't think it's helpful to be so self-diagnosis focused. So diagnosis first focus, if you like. Let me just try and move this a little bit as well. That's probably a bit better, so my head's not on the top. And what I mean by that is, I set up this channel called Suddenly Autistic. I've been making videos about becoming diagnosed at a later age, and about the revelations and about what I'm learning about myself, and that's great. This is still learning about myself. It's more of a looking back and going, oh my God, maybe this is what it's actually like. I am embodied. I've embodied this. I've integrated it. I think that's the thing. I feel for the first time, the reason why I haven't felt compelled to, every time some little thought goes through my mind, make a video and share that, is because I was getting very, very close, and now I feel like I'm there, to integrating my autistic self into my whole self, to become my whole self, which is kind of a good thing. I don't know whether... No, I'm just going to leave it at that, because it doesn't matter. Every day we're alive, we are experiencing things that have the potential to shift us from our existing fulcrum, to create a new normal, if you like. Or an opportunity. So we might learn something, see something, meet a new friend, master a new skill, or even start a process of a new hobby, or whatever it might be. Things happen all the time. Life is a process. Life is living, as you all know. But I suppose the trying to work out where this new knowledge of being autistic, and I have my ADHD, and my mental illnesses of generalised anxiety disorder and complex PTSD, being told all of that later, and then trying to integrate that into an already full life, but a life that was seeking. My life had been seeking answers. Being given the answers doesn't stop the problem of feeling a bit weird and not feeling fully integrated. I still felt a little bit scattered, if you like, and like, oh, is this the autism? Is this the ADHD? Maybe this is me being traumatised, or this is coming from my trauma. the last couple of weeks, I think that has shifted to, this is me. Sure, those diagnoses are still very important. It's very important for me to be able to understand and to be able to trace these things back, because I can't rely on I haven't got that. It's a privilege to have that gut feeling in real time that some neurotypical people have, for sure, and others talk about because it's the general narrative, trust your gut and whatever that seemed to be. I can't do that because of sensory processing differences that are in part due to, or a large part due to, my autism. So, but this is, like I said, this situation that I'm in now is markedly different. So I'm going to talk about that a bit more. I've already been talking around it for a little while, but really it's a hard thing because, like I'm saying, this is integrated. I feel like I'm getting integrated. So my example of where this sort of, I've got crumbs on me, probably from my cake. Maybe it's not crumbs, maybe it's just something I don't know what it is. A little something. Last week I had to go to I was at a work event, and it was one of those work conference things where there's 2 intensive days together with your team. This isn't normal for me. I usually work in a small team of essentially just the 2 of us, with probably 3 to 5 or 6 others that kind of mesh around. So usually I'm working on my own or with my co-worker, my team, my job sharing partner, and then there's a few other people that come in. So last week was very stressful for me in terms of the routine change and also in terms of the social input. Luckily for me, this work event was happening near my home, so I didn't have to stay over. Everybody else was staying over at the event centre, doing the day things and then going out at night for the meals and the socialising. This is the first time I have been to such an event, and I think I've had these insights and been in this privileged position of actually learning from it because I was able to go home. I feel like that's a really important, that was a really important thing for me. But it was the first time I've been to something like that and felt wholly seen for me, and like everything, I suppose that's all I can say, feel whole. And what do I mean by that? I'm making this video as I'm thinking about it, so it might be a bit all over the place, but I kind of wanted to do that because it's a hard thing to process. I had the feeling like, so this was something new for me as well, my body saying, hey, there's something in this, you've actually, this is a shift for you. So I recognized the shift, but now I'm struggling to put words to it, which is very unusual for me because usually I'm an intellectualizer and I'd be like, oh yeah, this is a shift and that makes logical sense because you've done this, but I'm actually struggling to find the words now. So I'm kind of glad that I'm making this video, although I don't want it to ramble on. So if it does start, I might edit it and come back to the point. But I wanted to share that because I think that's also a very good learning for me. But I guess in terms of if I go into my intellectualizing brain, so my body is recognizing something different that's happening at this work conference 2-day event, and I can sum that up first of all by saying I felt safer than I've ever done before. I felt seen in my autistic reality as an individual who has other things that are actually, that you're there for. I'm not there because I'm autistic. I'm there because I'm doing a job and I'm there to participate in the team events. So the fact that I'm autistic is not the topic of conversation, but the fact that this is known about me made me feel a lot safer, because I don't know about you, and I don't know whether you're autistic or whatever listener out there, but for me, the social situations usually do, I'm going to sneeze. social work situations like that can be a hotbed of shame for me. I can shame myself. I can end up behaving in a way that makes me feel quite ashamed of myself quite quickly and quite easily. And the way that usually happens is I will not be able to, I don't have a very good mask, so I'm already under pressure in a work environment to monitor, and make sure that I'm not being rude or looking disrespectful or disinterested or whatever, and that I'm not fidgeting, I'm not butting in and whatever, I'm being appropriate. So I already feel like I have to behave in a way that's squashing me, that I have to mask. So I have to mask in any work situation, as anybody does, because we are still trying to be professional and get on with work. But for me, it's not so much, let me act like the CEO because I really want to be the CEO. This is just me. I've got to use a lot of energy to act like a sane human being that actually can control their body and stop it rocking around when, so it's a low bar. So there's that I was doing. Sorry, I've got an itchy nose now. So usually in these work situations, I will, that very thin mask or understanding that I should behave myself in a certain way, I struggle to keep it up, especially when the event goes over a couple of days, and absolutely especially when there's social elements to it, like after hours socializing, which, as I said, I didn't participate in. But I felt uncomfortable at the event, as uncomfortable as I suppose I would do at any time being my autistic self. And I also felt seen, understood, and not judged for these things. So in fact, I felt cared for, because at the end of the first day, one of the people I work with, that works in my team from time to time, came over and said, how are you going? Your face looked like, by the looks of your face, you're quite tired, and that was a bit stressful for you. And the tone that was said, the timing of it, and the person who said it made me feel safe, seen, and supported. And I didn't really notice how significant that was for me at the time, but that sort of feedback kept coming. There was a couple of times within the 2 days where we were doing group conversations, and you put your hand up if you want to pop in a bit of the chat or whatever, and there was a couple of times when I was really struggling to wait my turn, if you like, to keep the ideas in my head and do active listening, and to remember whose turn it is, and to keep, there was a lot going on, and I was struggling with that, and I was then struggling to not have that be a problem for me. I didn't feel judged in that time. I didn't feel like I should be ashamed of myself, whereas in other times I would have, because I'd been like, damn, you just don't know when to cut into a conversation. Why are you such an idiot? The moment's gone. In fact, I feel like I was so comfortable in one of those chats that I had such a burning thing to say, and the conversation was going away, and the person talking said, look, Amanda, we see you, we are going to get to you, at some point. We've just got to do this first, and we might come back to you. Is that okay? And I was like, well, yes, but it wasn't okay, but it was okay because it's not all about me. When they did come back to me, I momentarily had all the thoughts and all the content in my head drop to the floor and run away. But I didn't feel rushed either, so those thoughts gathered themselves back up, came up through my body, and eventually came out of my mouth, and I made my contribution, which I feel was valuable, and it was validated as such. So I think what I witnessed, what I'm reflecting on, and what I witnessed in that moment, if I could have sort of put myself above myself, if you like, in that bird's eye view of me sitting in that room, in that circle, having that chat, I felt like for the first time in my life that I was me. That was me. That my presence was welcome. That my input was valuable. That my quirks were accepted, and that my team was interested in me, not just beyond what I can do, not just my doings, but also my being. How was I coping, how was I going? And I really wanted to share that because I think that's huge. That is huge. It's not like I've been to things I've not been to. It's not as if this is the first time I've been to something and felt okay about being autistic. It's not about being autistic, like, oh, I'm going to this, I'm allowed to fidget and whatever. When you go to an event, and I've been to some, I've been to autism, social, like, neurodiverse social groups and things like that. It's a neurodiverse safe space where there are provisions for you and whatever, and you can do those things and no one's going to judge you because that's what they expect you to do. I've been to those and they have been nice. This was different. This wasn't a neurodiverse space. This was a workspace with lots of different people, mostly who I haven't really met before. Some of them I haven't met at all. Some of them I've met in passing. We were there to kick some professional goals, to get through an agenda. So and we were there not to talk about autism and neurodiversity. We were there to talk about other things. Being able to be supported in that environment is huge. I think that's going a long way to healing some of my trauma around the world in general and around how safe it feels. And like I said, feeling fully integrated, that I showed up as myself and got on with it and got through it. And yes, I was exhausted each day. I reached my mental capacity at the end of the first day. I exceeded it, actually. I was way beyond tired, and I didn't have a good night's sleep after that. And then the next day I started really tired again. But it wasn't devastating. I didn't feel my anxiety and my heart. I didn't feel like I was having a heart attack at any time. I didn't feel, like I said, ashamed. I felt like I was in a I felt like I was in a safe space. I felt like I was in a safe space, and I felt like it was understood that, and supported, that I could do what I needed to do to get myself through this and to be a member of the team. So yeah, that's really what I wanted to share. And I wonder if it's been a bit of a wishy-washy video, or a bit of a, a lot of talk about the same thing and nothing. But that, on reflection, what happened to me this week is probably, like I said, the first time I've actually ever known what it's like to be me, as opposed to, I suppose, what I might have been feeling before was like the old me, approaching things in the old me way, trying to make sense of this new diagnosis and going, oh yeah, well, intellectually that's because I did that because of that, and I can make sure I can understand why that was so upsetting. This was an embodied me, and that is huge. And all I can say to that is, long may that continue. Long may that continue. I know that I'll have zero chance of feeling that's safe, because you have to be safe. I feeling safe and supported and seen and validated by my work colleagues in an environment that wasn't about me, my mental illness, or anything else. It's about other things, was really important. I couldn't have done that in another environment, in an environment that wasn't open to me and as my whole me participating. If it had to be the me that's acceptable to others and that just doesn't fidget and doesn't have a frowny face halfway through the day, or doesn't, tap things, or jump out of their chair trying to participate in whatever, So that's what I've learned. I was being my best me. I was being as respectful as I could, but things were spilling out of me in terms of, the autism, I guess you could call it, and that was okay. I think that's great, and I'm sharing it. I'm so happy. Yay!